Captain Mira Chen stood before the Grand Council of the Galactic Confederation, trying not to fidget in her formal diplomatic uniform as 17 pairs, or clusters, or sensory organs of alien eyes scrutinized her. The council chamber was an intimidating dome of crystalline material that shifted colors with the mood of the representatives seated in tiered positions above her. Earth's first official diplomatic mission to the stars wasn't going well. "The Grand Council acknowledges the presence of the humans," said High Lord Zilborgs, a gelatinous being whose translucent body housed multiple nuclei that pulsed with bioluminescence. He pronounced humans like it was something unpleasant stuck to his pseudopod. "We understand your species has recently stumbled upon rudimentary faster-than-light technology. How quaint." "Stumbled upon my ass," thought Mira. The Alcubierre drive had taken the combined efforts of Earth's greatest physicists over 50 years to develop, but she kept her expression neutral as the translator pinned to her collar rendered the High Lord's condescension into English. "Thank you for granting us this audience," Mira began, the rehearsed words feeling hollow even to her own ears. "Earth seeks peaceful relations and—" "Yes, yes," interrupted Councillor Turk, an arachnoid being who clicked her mandibles impatiently. "All primitives seek peaceful relations until they learn the true complexities of galactic politics. Your species has barely stopped killing each other over melanin levels and imaginary borders." Several council members emitted sounds that the translator identified as laughter. Mira's cheeks burned, but she maintained composure. Behind her, the small Earth delegation shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Elijah Okonkwo, their xenolinguist, whispered something about standard diplomatic intimidation tactics in her ear. High Lord Zilborgs raised an appendage for silence. "If your species truly seeks consideration for Confederation observer status, you will present your formal petition in civilized speech." The translator in Mira's ear buzzed with a private note from the AI. "They expect you to speak unified galactic standard, physically impossible for human vocal cords." Mira opened her mouth to protest. They hadn't mentioned this requirement in any of the preliminary communications, when she felt a tickle in her nose. The recycled air in the chamber was filled with alien particulates, and the nervousness of the situation wasn't helping. She tried to suppress it, but the sneeze built uncontrollably. "Oh, ah." The sound echoed through the chamber. Every alien froze. High Lord Zilborg's gelatinous form solidified in shock, his nuclei aligned in perfect rows. Turk fell from her perch, legs curling inward. The reptilian Sasaran representative hissed and prostrated himself on the floor. "Blast MP!" shouted one voice. "Miracle!" countered another. "The Ancient Ones return," declared a third. Guards rushed in, weapons drawn but clearly confused about who to target. Half of them ended up bowing to Mira, while the other half formed a protective circle around the council members. "What the hell just happened?" Mira whispered to Dr. Okonkwo. "I have absolutely no idea," he responded, eyes wide, "but I think you just either declared war or announced your divinity." Mira and her team were escorted, it was unclear whether as prisoners or honored guests, to a luxurious chamber with walls that shimmered with embedded data streams. Security drones hovered at the entrances, their optical sensors fixed unblinkingly on the humans. "Well, that escalated quickly," muttered Communications Officer Jamie Park, slumping onto a cushioned surface that conformed to human ergonomics. "One minute we're getting the primitive species speech, the next we're causing a religious experience." "I always knew your sneezes were special, Captain, but this is ridiculous," added Science Officer Leia Goldstein, who was already scanning the room with her handheld instruments. "These accommodations are top tier. Either they're trying to impress us or study us, possibly both." Dr. Okonkwo was frantically reviewing data on his tablet. "This is unprecedented. I'm accessing the cultural database they provided during our approach. There are references to something called the ancient tongue, a language supposedly spoken by the first spacefaring civilization. The Precursors," added Leah. "Every species mentions them in their mythologies. They supposedly built the foundation for all current galactic technology before disappearing around 500 years ago." "Yes, but here's the thing. Elijah pointed to a passage. Their language is considered impossible to pronounce correctly by modern species. It's sacred, almost magical in most cultural contexts. And somehow I spoke it by sneezing? Mira asked incredulously. Not the language itself, but phonetic elements that match recorded fragments. According to this, producing these sounds is considered either a sign of divine heritage or dangerous heresy. So, either sneezed like a god or like a terrorist. Fantastic. Mira rubbed her temples. Options, people. What's our play here? Before anyone could respond, the door slid open with a musical chime, and a delegation of Confederation officials entered. Their body language registered as extremely nervous, even to humans unfamiliar with alien expressions. A hovering translation device preceded them. Esteemed potential ancient ones, began a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted through blues and purples. I am First Minister Alexara of the Diplomatic Corps. We request clarification of your intentions toward the Confederation. Our intentions haven't changed, said Mira carefully. Earth seeks peaceful relations and… Yes, but are you claiming to be precursor descendants? This would fundamentally alter all Confederation protocols. Alexara's skin flushed with anxious color patterns. We make no such claim, Mira responded, trying to maintain diplomatic neutrality. This caused visible relief among the delegation until she accidentally cleared her throat, producing another sound that made the aliens flinch collectively. Yet you speak the ancient tongue with casual ease, said another official, a being resembling a feathered serpent whose scales rippled with each word. This is troubling. The High Council is divided. Some believe you are legitimate precursor descendants with rights to all precursor technology and authority. Others fear you are dangerous imposters who must be contained. And what do you believe? Asked Mira. I believe, said Alexara carefully, that regardless of the truth, humanity has just become the most significant political issue in 5 centuries of Confederation history. As they left, Dr. Okonkwo turned to Mira with a grim expression. They're stalling while they decide what to do with us, and based on their mythology around these precursors, neither option looks good for Earth. If we're divine descendants, they'll expect miracles we can't perform. If we're imposters, they'll make an example of us, Mira concluded. We need a plan. We need to buy time, Mira told her team once they were alone again. We've sent the situation report back to Earth. They'll send linguistic experts, anthropologists, people who might make sense of this situation. Until then we play along? Asked Leah skeptically. Pretend to be space gods? Not exactly, Mira said, pacing the chamber. We don't claim to be precursor descendants, but we don't deny it either. Diplomatic ambiguity. If they want to jump to conclusions, that's on them. Schrödinger's deities, Jamie quipped. We're simultaneously divine and not until they open the box. Dr. Okonkwo was still analyzing data. I've been reviewing the audio recording of your sneeze, Captain, comparing it to the few known fragments of the ancient tongue in the database. There's definitely phonetic overlap, but it's not just your sneeze. He looked up, excitement in his eyes. I tested other human sounds. Coughing, hiccups, throat clearing. They all contain elements that match patterns in the precursor language database. So any human could potentially trigger this reaction, asked Jamie. Theoretically, and I just tried something else. Elijah tapped his tablet, and a recording of someone beatboxing played. The match percentage jumps to 78% with this. So we're linguistic savants without even trying, Mira mused. That could be useful. A chime announced another visitor. This time it was a delegation from a faction calling themselves the Xan'Tik, insectoid beings with metallic exoskeletons and compound eyes that reflected the room in fractured patterns. There was something immediately off-putting about them. Where other aliens had seemed awed or nervous, these radiated suspicion and hostility. Their leader introduced himself as Overseer Zegvri. We represent the rationalist faction of the Confederation, he said, mandibles clicking between words in a way the translator rendered as condescension. We remain skeptical of your supposed connection to the Precursors. We've made no claims, Mira replied diplomatically. Yet you do not deny them either, Xan'Tik recountered. Convenient. The credulous members of the council may be impressed by vocal tricks, but we require evidence. We propose a series of tests involving authenticated precursor artifacts. If you are what some believe, activation should be instinctual. After they left, Mira turned to her team. They're setting us up to fail. Maybe not, said Elijah, grinning. Jamie, how's your beatboxing? I paid for college performing on street corners, Jamie replied with a wink. I'm a little rusty, but give me an hour to practice. Over the next few days, the team practiced producing sounds that matched ancient tongue patterns. Jamie became their secret weapon, able to produce complex vocal percussions that created the highest match percentages with the fragments in the database. Their first test came soon enough. In a ceremonial chamber filled with observers from various factions, they faced a small, dodecahedral device of unknown material that glinted with an inner light. The Xan'Tik explained it was a simple precursor artifact that, when activated, projected navigational data. Mira approached it, heart pounding. She had no idea what to do. Behind her, Jamie was ready with a prepared incantation of sounds, but before they could implement their plan, Mira and Leah got into a whispered argument about protocol. We can't just beatbox at it, Leah hissed. We need to show proper ceremonial respect first. What ceremony? Mira whispered back. We're making this up as we go. Gesturing in frustration, Mira accidentally knocked over her cup of coffee, a luxury they'd insisted on bringing from Earth. The liquid splashed across the artifact, which immediately hummed to life, projecting a three-dimensional star map across the chamber. The observers gasped collectively. I activated it with the sacred liquid of our people, Mira improvised, while her team struggled to maintain composure. Coffee is holy to your species? Asked a fascinated diplomat. Absolutely essential to our functioning, Jamie managed with a straight face, which wasn't even a lie. Word spread quickly. Soon after, they were approached by yet another faction, the Devoted, a religious group led by Grand Prelate Vuush, a being resembling a sentient plant with bioluminescent flowers that pulsed as he spoke. The signs are undeniable, Vuush told Mira, who found herself constantly followed by the enthusiastic prelate. Your return was prophesied. Your wisdom will guide us to ascension. That's very flattering, but when you spoke of the sacred liquid, I understood the profound metaphor of nurturing ancient knowledge with new sustenance. Brilliant. Right. Exactly what I meant, Mira said, exchanging glances with Dr. Okonkwo, who was barely suppressing laughter. Meanwhile, Elijah had a breakthrough. Captain, I don't think the ancient tongue is special because it's divinely complex, he explained during a private team meeting. I think it's special because most species can't physically produce these sounds. Human vocal anatomy is uniquely versatile compared to most Confederation species. So we're not mystical, Mira said, just weird? Precisely. We can make sounds they physically cannot, which to them seems supernatural. Like if you met someone who could see ultraviolet light, suggested Leah. It would seem like a superpower to us, but it's just a different biological capability. This is fascinating and all, said Jamie, but doesn't change our immediate problem. The Xan'Tik are setting us up to fail their tests, and I'm not sure we can count on accidentally spilling beverages every time. We practice, said Mira firmly. Every sound we can make that matches their precursor records. We document everything, and we keep Earth informed so they can send experts. A week into the diplomatic crisis, Earth sent reinforcements. Professor Raji Kapoor, Earth's leading expert in xenolinguistics and comparative phonology, arrived with a team of specialists. His shuttle docked with the Confederation station where the human delegation was now housed. Fascinating situation you've created, Captain, Professor Kapoor said after being briefed. His eyes twinkled with academic excitement behind rimless glasses. I've analyzed the data Dr. Okonkwo collected, and I have some surprising news. Many Earth languages contain phonetic elements similar to the ancient tongue. He displayed comparative analyses on a holographic projection. Sanskrit phonemes, Xhosa click consonants, Welsh mutations, Vietnamese tones. They all contain elements that match precursor language fragments. It's as if human language evolution paralleled this ancient tongue. Is it possible that the precursors actually visited Earth in the past? Asked Leah. Maybe they influenced our language development? Perhaps, said Kapoor, adjusting his glasses. But I have another theory, convergent evolution. The human vocal tract evolved to produce an extraordinarily diverse range of sounds. We may have independently evolved the ability to mimic these ancient tongue elements. Their theorizing was interrupted when a junior officer burst in. Captain Chen, another human ship has arrived. It's the UES Prometheus. Mira groaned. Commander Hayes, who authorized this? Apparently some senators back home thought we needed stronger representation, the officer replied with a grimace. Commander Victor Hayes was an ambitious career officer known for his political connections and aggressive approach to alien relations. He'd been a vocal critic of what he called Earth's subservient diplomatic stance. Hayes wasted no time making his presence known. During a formal reception welcoming Professor Kapoor's team, he publicly suggested that humanity should use its newfound special status to demand advanced technologies and territorial concessions. If these beings think we're gods, perhaps we should accept their worship, he announced to a mixed audience of humans and aliens, raising eyebrows and triggering alarmed translator chatter. Earth has struggled long enough. It's time we received the respect and resources we deserve. We've been handed a gift, he told Mira in a heated private conversation afterward. These aliens think we're gods. Let's act like it and take what Earth deserves. And if they discover we're bluffing, Mira countered, they could quarantine our entire system, or worse. They won't discover anything if we play this right, Hayes insisted, his handsome features hardening. Your team stumbled into this situation, Chen. My team will capitalize on it. The Xan'Tik, meanwhile, grew more determined to expose the humans. They arranged another test, this time with an artifact described as a knowledge crystal that supposedly stored precursor wisdom. Unknown to the human delegation, they'd substituted a replica. When Mira's team failed to activate it despite Jamie's best linguistic efforts, accusations flew. This confirms our suspicions, Overseer Xan'Tik announced to the Council. These creatures are frauds, using technological trickery. The council chambers erupted in shouting and competing motions. In the chaos, Professor Kapoor pulled Mira aside. I've been experimenting with different sound patterns on the artifacts we've been allowed to study, he said urgently. Captain, it's not just speech. Human music produces even stronger reactions in precursor technology, particularly jazz scatting, throat singing, and certain vocal techniques from death metal. You're suggesting we put on a concert? Mira asked incredulously. I'm suggesting we arrange a formal ritual demonstration of our heritage, Kapoor said with a glint in his eye. A performance that showcases the full range of human vocal abilities. With the council divided and tensions escalating, Mira negotiated for one final demonstration to prove humanity's connection to the precursors. The test, activating the Central Spire. A massive precursor monument that had remained dormant since its discovery 3 centuries ago. What Mira didn't know was that Commander Hayes had learned of the Xan'Tik sabotage plans through his own intelligence sources, but was letting it proceed, calculating that a diplomatic breakdown would allow more aggressive human expansion later. Worse, the Xan'Tik had positioned warships near Earth, ready to move if the humans were exposed as frauds. The Central Spire dominated the capital world's horizon, a twisted column of unknown material that the human team stood at its base, surrounded by representatives from every Confederation species and faction. The atmosphere was tense. Some expected a miracle, others anticipated vindication of their suspicions. No pressure, Jamie whispered, just the fate of our planet resting on my beatboxing skills. You've got this, Mira reassured her. Professor Kapoor's composition is solid. Behind the scenes, Mira had learned of the Xan'Tik warships from a sympathetic aide. The stakes couldn't be higher. Failure could mean an attack on Earth itself. Professor Kapoor had developed what he called a linguistic performance, incorporating elements from dozens of Earth languages and vocal traditions. But as they prepared to begin, an alarm sounded. Security drones detected unauthorized modifications to the Spire's base. "This test has been compromised," announced High Lord Xilborx, his gelatinous form rippling with indignation. "The Council will adjourn to consider—" "Wait," Mira stepped forward. "We request the opportunity to proceed regardless. If we succeed despite interference, that should remove all doubt about Earth's connection to your precursors." A daring gambit, but it worked. The Council agreed, though few expected success. The team began their prepared performance, but something wasn't working. The Spire remained inert. Professor Kapoor looked increasingly worried as they progressed through the composition with no response. In the tense silence that followed their failed attempt, Jamie Park stepped forward unexpectedly. With the Council's permission, she said, "I'd like to try something different." Before anyone could object, Jamie closed her eyes and began to beatbox. Not the rehearsed pattern, but an improvised performance that incorporated everything she'd learned about the ancient tongue. She layered in throat-singing techniques, kosa clicks, Arabic trills, tonal shifts from Mandarin, and rhythmic patterns that seemed to pulse with the very material of the Spire itself. "What is she doing?" hissed Leah. "I don't know," Mira whispered back. "But I'm not stopping her." At first, nothing happened. Overseer Z. Carvery's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Commander Hayes reached for his communicator, presumably to warn Earth of the impending diplomatic disaster. Then, a vibration, subtle at first, then growing. The patterns etched on the Spire began to glow, pulsing in rhythm with Jamie's performance. The crowd gasped as the glow intensified. The Spire was not just activating, it was transforming. Sections rotated, realigned and shifted until what was once a solid monument unfolds into an intricate structure of interconnected elements. Jamie continued, sweat beading on her forehead, somehow intuiting the patterns needed to maintain the activation. The Spire now projected enormous holographic images, star maps, mathematical equations, and most importantly, beings of countless different morphologies working together. As Jamie's performance reached its crescendo, the Spire's central core opened, revealing a data repository of unimaginable complexity. A three-dimensional projection appeared, a message recorded 500, 0, 0. The message showed not one species but representatives from thousands of different species, speaking in unison, their combined voices creating the patterns of the ancient tongue. Professor Kapoor translated as the message played. The Precursors weren't a single species. They were a coalition of thousands of diverse civilizations, like the Confederation, but far more integrated. The message explained that the Precursors didn't disappear. They engineered their own evolution, dividing and seeding themselves across the galaxy to ensure their collective knowledge wouldn't be lost to a single catastrophe. "Most Confederation species are their descendants," Kapoor explained, awestruck. "But over evolutionary time, specialized vocal organs developed. Each species retained only a fraction of the original vocal capabilities." The final revelation stunned everyone. The ancient tongue was never meant to be spoken by a single species. It was a universal translator designed to be pronounced collectively, with different species contributing different sounds. Except humans, whose unique evolutionary path on an isolated world preserved unprecedented vocal versatility. "We're not gods or special descendants," Mira announced to the stunned council as the message concluded. "We're just the galaxy's linguistic preservationists. We can pronounce these sounds not because we're divine, but because our planet's isolation led to unusual evolutionary development." The Xan'Tik delegation conferred frantically as their warships, visible on tactical displays, awaited orders. The religious faction appeared crestfallen, yet fascinated by this new paradigm. The council members themselves seemed unsure how to proceed in light of this revelation that rewrites their understanding of galactic history. In the days following the Spire revelation, the Confederation underwent a political earthquake. The human delegation, led by Captain Chen, navigated delicate negotiations as the balance of power shifted. Earth does not seek dominance, Mira told the Reformed Council during a historic session. We offer partnership. Our unique linguistic abilities can help recover precursor knowledge that benefits all species. Despite Commander Hayes' backroom efforts to push for human supremacy, Mira's moderate approach prevailed. Earth was granted special status in the Confederation, not as rulers but as valued contributors with a unique role. The Xan'Tik reluctantly withdrew their warships, though Overseer Zikvri made it clear they'll be watching humanity closely. As a diplomatic gesture that everyone recognized as punishment disguised as honor, Commander Hayes was appointed as Earth's ambassador to the Xan'Tik homeworlds. I'm sure you'll find it enlightening, Mira told him with barely concealed satisfaction as he prepared to depart. This isn't over, Chen, Hayes muttered. Earth deserved more. Earth deserved to survive, she countered, and now it will thrive, as partners, not conquerors. The religious faction, led by Grand Prelate Wu Yush, adapted their theology with remarkable flexibility. The universal chorus requires many voices became their new doctrine, with humans cast as voice keepers rather than divine beings. Your species preserves what the rest of us have lost, Vuish explained to Mira as they walked through a garden of bioluminescent plants. Not divinity, but diversity, perhaps even more precious. Captain Chen established the Linguistic Corps, a specialized branch of Earth's Space Service dedicated to recovering and translating precursor knowledge. Dr. Okonkwo became its first director, with Jamie Park as his chief sound specialist. So I went from communications officer to galactic beatboxer, Jamie joked during the signing ceremony. My parents will be so proud. You saved Earth, Mira reminded her. I'd say that's a decent career advancement. Professor Kapoor began teaching diverse Earth languages to alien diplomats who struggled hilariously with human phonetics. Watching a Zilbexian try to pronounce Massachusetts is worth the trip to space alone, he told Mira during the celebration of Earth's formal induction. We came looking for allies and trade partners, Mira reflected, watching species that weeks ago were ready to quarantine Earth, now mingling with human delegates. Instead, we found our place in a history older than our civilization. It's almost suspicious how perfectly human vocal cords match precursor phonetic patterns, Leah mused beside her. Maybe there is more to our evolution than we understand. A mystery for another day, Mira replied, raising a glass of champagne that had become wildly popular among certain Confederation species. For now, I'm just glad we're not at war. 6 months later, at the formal ceremony marking Earth's full membership in the Confederation, dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered in the council chamber. The Central Spire, now partially decoded, had revealed technological insights that accelerated scientific progress across multiple fields. High Lord Zilborx, his gelatinous form arranged in formal patterns that denoted highest respect, delivered the closing address. Today marks a new era of cooperation, he intoned solemnly. Though the path was unexpected, the outcome benefits all. In recognition of our new understanding, I shall conclude with the traditional human expression of welcome. He paused dramatically, then carefully produced a sound he'd been practicing for weeks with Professor Kapoor's team. The effect was immediate and entirely unexpected. Every human in the chamber doubled over in uncontrollable laughter. Dr. Okonkwo, wiping tears from his eyes, hurriedly explained to the mortified Zilborx. The particular vibration he produced translated simultaneously to crude bathroom humor in 6 different Earth languages. As diplomatic staff rushed to smooth over the incident, Mira caught Jamie's eye across the room. They both struggled to maintain composure. Maybe the Precursors had a sense of humor after all, Mira whispered. I think we're going to fit right in. Or, maybe, Jamie suggested with a smirk, the universe itself appreciates a good joke. Next time, we should teach them to say Uranus properly. In the decades that followed, humanity's integration into the Confederation transformed both. Earth became a central hub for linguistic studies and cultural exchange, while precursor technologies recovered through human vocal interfaces revolutionized everything from medicine to space travel. And if occasionally an alien diplomat accidentally said something that made humans collapse in helpless laughter, well, that was just one more way the universe reminded everyone that communication was both the greatest challenge and the greatest gift of all. 3 years later, deep in an ancient precursor archive uncovered beneath the Central Spire, Jamie Park discovered a secret. To our human children, we knew you would find us eventually. The experiment was a success. She stared at it for a long moment, then quietly placed the crystal in her pocket. Some discoveries, she decided, could wait for tomorrow.